Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where Karens are trying to steal people's houses because they're pregnant and they need it more. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup of stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Oh, and don't shake your heads too hard today. Okay, so I can barely see straight because I'm so angry at this woman. I work with this lady. She's the perfect entitled monster who we'll call Karen. Now her name really isn't Karen, but it fits. She's always trying to pass things onto other people that are her responsibility, and we've had long conversations before where she's explained to me why she never tips at restaurants, just to set the stage on what kind of human being she is. So a little bit about me is I have textile hobbies. I sew, I crochet, I embroider. Sometimes I even lug around a piece or two of my work while it's still in progress to work on, if I get a few free minutes. My sister-in-law's been pregnant, and her theme in the baby's room is elephants, arrows, and cherry blossoms. Whatever floats your boat, right? I'm making her a few plain white linen type napkins for burp cloths, with elephants, arrows, and cherry blossoms on them. Cute, right? I thought so. I brought one of the elephants to work a few weeks ago, and I was working on it during a lull, while Karen was on her phone looking at Facebook. Karen then looks over and says, "Oh, that looks pretty, what are you making?" I told her it was a burp cloth thing for my sister-in-law. Karen then told me, "You know, my daughter-in-law is pregnant." I tell her, "No, I didn't know that, congratulations." It was at that moment Karen says, "Well, I should get you to make her a set. She's doing the baby's room in little giraffes and blah blah blah." I say to her, "Oh, Karen, I'm so glad you like them, but I don't do commission work. It just takes all the fun out of a hobby when you have a deadline and stuff. I just like to do this stuff for fun, you know?" At that, Karen says, "Oh, come on. How long could it take? Just make her like 6 of them and I can tell her I did it." At that I laughed because I really thought it was a joke, and Karen laughed too, so I thought it was a joke. We didn't speak about it anymore. So cut to today at work. Karen comes up to me and says, "You know, I've been telling my daughter-in-law that I'm working on something extra special for her, for the baby shower this weekend." I say to her, "Oh, really? What have you been up to?" Karen then looks at me like I'm an idiot, and she says, the burp cloths?" I reply, "Oh, Karen, that's so great. How are they turning out?" Now, I seriously thought Karen had picked up a new hobby, and at this point she laughs and says, "I don't know, you tell me. When are you gonna be done?" At that point, we just sit in mutually confused silence for about 15 seconds, and that's when Karen says, "Did you not finish them yet? It's been like 6 weeks. The shower is on Sunday." I replied, what are you talking about?" Karen says, "I told you that I wanted some of those cloths you make for my daughter-in-law, for her baby shower." I respond, "I remember, and I told you I don't do commission work." Cue the awkward pause, and that's when Karen says, "I know you don't do commission work. That's why I like you. You're so generous. So are you done or not?" Now, apparently Karen thought that when I said I don't do commission work and just like to do hobby work, she assumed that I would be making her half a dozen burp cloths for free. She then got mad at me because it's 1:30 on a Friday, and she exclaims, "Oh my god, I don't have time to shop for a gift now. You really let me down, you know. My daughter-in-law is gonna be so disappointed because I promised her burp cloths." Now Karen's mad at me that I've put her in such an awkward position. She then offers to give me $10 for materials and another $10 if I could just pick up the stuff after work and get them done by tomorrow afternoon, and then acted like it was a hell of a deal. I called my husband from the parking lot when I got off work, and he gives me a speech about not being a doormat and that she can just shove it. Now, I do really feel bad for the daughter-in-law, but I can't bust out that much work in one day when I never agreed to it in the first place. Oh, and to add, she's super mad at me. She's called me like twice, and she's left me one long voicemail about what a crappy person I am. My goodness, like guys, why are some people like this? If I were in Opie's shoes, I'd be saving that voicemail just in case she tries to cause trouble at work. And guys, I also hate when people underestimate the time and effort it takes to do something. Like giving $10 to Opie to make 6 burp cloths and another $10 for material. Oh my goodness, Karen. Opie might have to quit her day job at that point because she's rich. Alright, so our old neighbor, Mr. B, passed away last year. He was a very sweet old man, kind of like the neighborhood grandpa. He was a widower, and the last couple of years, he started having mobility issues. So when it snowed, we would go over with a snowblower and we would clear his driveway and salt the walk. In the summer, if I was out mowing, I would mow his lawn too. When his health went downhill, we got his groceries and we would bring him meals. When he passed away, we continued to mow the lawn and take care of the outside of the house when it was vacant. His children were very appreciative and thanked us for taking care of Mr. B when they couldn't be there. They eventually sold the house, and the new neighbors moved in to the house in the fall. We introduced ourselves and did the standard neighbor greeting. We noticed that they didn't have any lawnmowers or a snowblower, so we told them that they should get those things sooner rather than later, since we typically start getting snow in November. A few times when I was out mowing, the neighbor did ask me to mow their lawn, and I obliged, but I told them that they should really consider getting their own yard tools, or even calling a service. So we just had a huge snowfall, and we're expected to get more this weekend. The neighbor comes to my house on early Sunday morning and he bangs on my door asking when I was going to be out snowblowing, as they need to get to work. I told the neighbors that I wasn't going to go out to shovel snow or snowblow anytime soon, so they might want to dig their cars out so they can get to work. He then told me that they didn't have any shovels and explained that they were relying on me to come over and take care of it. I told him I wasn't planning on doing that, and I told him that he could borrow a shovel if he would like, but I was going back to bed. When I did go out to shovel and snowblow several hours later, I didn't do their driveway. The neighbors are now angry at me, and he confronted me outside saying that it's my fault that they had to call out of work. My wife thinks I should have sucked it up and went over, but I told her that I'm not a landscaping service, and that I shouldn't have to wake up early on a Sunday to shovel their driveway. So am I the a-hole for not snowblowing for the neighbors? So yeah, I don't think anyone can argue that OP is the a-hole in this one. I just wanted to share the post because it's just so ridiculous that they called off work that day because they expected OP to wake up early on Sunday to shovel their driveway. Like, some people's entitlement never ceases to amaze me, guys. And if I were in OP's shoes, I would have totally said, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. This story took place years and years ago. Now, the very first thing you should know about me is that I have extremely long, naturally red hair, and I always have. It's led to so many run-ins with crazies in my life, but this one's always stood out to me. So I'll do my best to paraphrase what was said. I was 13 years old, and I was waiting for a friend to come out of the bathroom in the mall. And that's when an old entitled woman with fire truck red hair and her equally as entitled friend approached me, and they start touching my hair. The woman's feeling my hair and she says out loud, "Oh my, would you just look at that hair? My granddaughter's hair is almost as long as this." Her friend says, "Yes, oh my gosh, except hers isn't this lovely color." I say to the two, "Thank you so much." And the woman keeps going on and says, "Wow, I've been looking to get that color for ages. Like, what do you use, sweetheart?" I tell her this is just my hair, but thank you. That's when the woman's friend says, "Nonsense. Look at all these shades in your hair, honey. You obviously have highlights." Her friend says, "Yes, and it was a good job too, so what salon was it?" She then names a random salon in the area. I tell the women, "I'm sorry, but this is just how it grows. The highlights are from the sun." The woman interrupts me and says, "Well, if it is real, you're just gonna have to give me some of your hair to take to my dye specialist." With that, she reaches inside her purse, takes out some tiny nail scissors, and actually tries to cut a huge chunk of my hair. She's holding my hair tight, and she tries to cut way more than a little lock. I rip my hair out of her hands fast enough so I don't lose my hair to her tiny scissors wrath, and take a few steps back and shout, "Stop! You can take a picture if you want, and then you can show your guy." The woman is still waving the scissors around at this point, and she says, "Absolutely not. The lighting won't be correct. I can't get those highlights in a picture. The dye specialist has to know exactly what color." That's when her friend speaks up and says, "She's obviously lying. The selfish brat doesn't want to admit it's fake. Come on, where did your mom get this stuff to dye your hair?" At this point, people are starting to stare, but I'm too panicked to ask for help. They start getting closer to me, and the woman's friend makes a grab for my hair now too. I feel bad for leaving my friend, but I just run away until they're out of sight, and then I text her that I'm waiting for her at Claire's. She obviously understands once I calm down and tell her what happened. I was genuinely a little rattled from this whole experience, especially because they look like such nice old grandmas, and I couldn't believe someone felt entitled to a girl's hair. To this day, the sound of scissors near my head freaks me out. Guys, are Karens seriously stealing locks of hair now? What a creepy interaction. Yeah, so let me, a total stranger, just have some of your hair. And guys, for sure this counts as assault, right? Who would be finding someone and contacting the police at that point? I'm 31 years old, and I have a sister who's 28 years old, and she's honestly been the golden child to my mom, but not my father for as long as I can remember. My parents divorced when I was a teenager because my mother cheated with an old high school ex-boyfriend that's always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. And sadly, my sister's like her little mini-me. Our mother also seemed to believe that she had total authority over me anytime she so much as snapped her fingers. She'd snap them and order me around like a dog. It was demeaning. And my sister always backed her up too. So it was no surprise that I went to live with my dad full-time after our parents split, while my sister stayed with mom. The two of them were very alike, and both of them stopped speaking with my father unless it was about money. My father was very business-oriented and started teaching me how to do his line of work as soon as I was 16. I got pretty good at it, and after 12 years of working for my father, I was made a partner in his company. Things were great. But then about 8 months ago, tragedy struck. My father had become somewhat immunocompromised due to being a heavy smoker for much of his life, and he died at only 60 years old after he caught COVID. I met my mother and sister for the first time in years after we had a socially distanced funeral for my father over video call. My father was cremated by his own request and buried in a local cemetery, so there was no body or casket. My sister seemed to grieve, but my mother looked indifferent the entire time. Though honestly, I wasn't surprised. The last time she saw my father, she screamed at him that he owed her more money and then threatened to sue him, to which he just laughed at her. He'd paid alimony and child support as long as he was legally mandated to, and no more than that. He even put $30,000 towards my sister's college fund. But 10 years after the divorce, he was no longer legally required to send mom money anymore because of the judge's ruling. And she's by no means broke. She works the same job she's had for nearly 3 decades. She also fully owns the old family home we used to share, and she even rents out 2 of the rooms in it to Airbnb regularly. She's by no means hurting for money. Sometime after the funeral, my dad's will was read. I was pretty much willed nearly all of his assets, from most of his money to his business and his home. He left my sister a 2015 Nissan Altima and about $10,000 cash. My mother only got $1,000 and a few other items that she'd been claiming were rightfully hers since the divorce. Beyond that, I got the rest, and my girlfriend now lives with me in the house that my father passed down to me. My sister pretty much went from finishing 2 years of community college to living off her boyfriend and only working part-time online for several years. I wasn't aware till after the funeral because we were practically no contact and no one else told me. When lockdown hit, her boyfriend's job started downsizing little by little, and eventually he was only able to stay on part-time, which hampered hers and his finances to the point that he was finally telling her that she needed to look for better employment as well, since he was trying to find a second job. And then she got pregnant. One evening, I got an unexpected knock at my door. When I answered, I was unpleasantly greeted by both my mother and my sister. They both walked right in, without even asking, and they made themselves comfortable in my living room. My girlfriend and I shared a look of confusion, and I asked why they had come by. My sister was giggling and she was looking all over, opening doors and seemingly giving herself a tour of my home. My mother had just plopped herself down on my sofa and she snapped her fingers while demanding a cold, bottled water. My girlfriend got the water for her and I asked why they were here. My sister seemed all giddy and she ignored me to continue snooping around my home. And before long, I hear her yell from down the hall, "Mommy, it's perfect." And yes, she still calls her mommy. My mother finally spoke up and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." To which I was like, "What?" My mother then proceeded to say, "Listen, now that your father's passed, this house should have gone to me, since I was his only spouse, but you can still fix this. You make plenty of money and you could just buy a new house. Your sister needs this one so much more since she's the one with the baby on the way. Now, I'm not making you move out, but your sister lives here now." That's when I took a deep breath and stated aloud, that's not effing happening. You don't order me around, especially not in my home. Like, yeah, I make plenty of money, but like, Dad, I'm gonna save it for when I really need it. Not that you care. My mother then starts snapping her fingers at me like she used to do, and she loudly stated, "Stop. I'm your mother, and you will do as I say because I brought you into this world. I'm the one in charge here. And as far as you're concerned, I'm God. This house is rightfully mine, and your sister will live here. Consider this your formal eviction. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this can't be real. But then I just grabbed my cell phone and started dialing. My mom quickly stood up and yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I retort, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this crap started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." At that point, she starts swiping at me and managed to knock my phone out of my hands. She then proceeded to try to stomp on it, but I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could, and I screamed, "That's it. If you don't leave, I will force you out myself." My mother proceeded to slap me across the face, and I returned the favor twice as hard, backhanded. She then screamed, how could I do that to my own mother? And I went back to dialing my phone and said if she didn't leave, I would have police come to remove her by force. That's when my sister comes barreling in between us, holding her arms out and saying that I should just do the right thing for once in my life and be a good brother. I then snapped and said, "Oh really? I'm the bad sibling? Last I checked, I was the one who had to work for a living since I was a teenager. I had to do all the chores in the house while you just sat on your ass playing video games or talking with your friends all day. You're a complete mooch and thief, so I don't owe you anything. Now both of you should get out before I decide to dial this last number." Hearing me say that, my sister starts to tear up crying like a baby, and she said, "Mommy, make him stop." My mother then seemed to think she'd gotten really smart and said, "You know, if you do call the police, I can just tell them that you hit me. I don't think that'll be a very good thing for your..." I then cut her off with a raised hand and said, "Just stop, Mom. If you haven't noticed, my girlfriend right there has had her phone out recording the whole time. And that means we've recorded evidence of you assaulting me first and openly stating that you'd lie to police, so don't think that'll be good for your reputation at your job or your little Airbnb, Mom." Now, if looks could kill, my mother would have blew me up like a tactical nuke, but she quickly deflated and started dragging my crying sister out by the arm. My sister was somehow acting like a complete toddler, and she broke loose of my mom's grip to sit down on my porch step and have a tantrum. I just gave my mother a look and said, "Hey, do you see this now? This is the result of the way you spoiled her." I then let out a cackle and told them both from the door to never come back. My mother flipped me the bird, and she went to try to pull my sister off the porch. It did take a few minutes, but she finally got my sister to get up and leave with her, and she said that I'm a cruel and heartless bastard who will go to hell for this. At that, I laughed some more, and I said that there's a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who try to manipulate others to get their way. My mother clenched her fist, and she was about to say more when I held up my smartphone again with it recording and said, "The clock is ticking, Mom. Get off my property." My mother then walked my sister to the car, but she gave me one last snooty look and drove off. Now I thought that was the end of it, but letting things go was never something my mother would do. After a few days, I start getting messages from people that I know and some relatives online. A lot of them were furious with me, but others just had questions about what was going on. I had a few that called me a greedy, heartless bastard who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's, which is a complete and utter lie, and they both know it. I then called my lawyer, who is also my father's lawyer and a trusted family friend, and gave him all the copies of the screenshots from Facebook and the video my girlfriend recorded the day my mother demanded my house. He just wanted to write a formal cease and desist, but I wanted to take it further than that. He sent them a letter that I told him to write via express mail that had to be signed for, so I know they got it. My mother called me in an absolute fury the same day the letter was delivered. She called me unreasonable, and that what she did was for my sister's sake. And then she went into full-blown lecture mode, reiterating her belief that my sister still needs my house more than me because she's pregnant. I bluntly stated that I don't care what she thought, and that's when she begrudgingly said, "Fine, you win, keep the effing house." That very evening, I was unblocked, and my mother gave me and everyone else a half-assed apology, claiming she jumped the gun with everything she said because she thought my sister needed my house more than me because she's broke and pregnant. Of course, that's not how it works. The house was rightfully mine according to my father's will, and she knew that even before my father passed away, so she had no right to try to claim it. As for my sister, she also apologized, but more or less just parroted everything my mother said. while claiming she just went along with her ideas. The replies poured in for some time on both my mom's and my sister's profiles. Many were furious for them trying to take my house. I got a lot of messages of sorries and my bads from those people who previously believed her. But all it really did was show me who was more on her side to begin with, since they were all believing her nonsense so quickly. They were mostly people from her side of the family anyway. No one on my father's side believed her at all and openly said so. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with my mother to save money, but she put them in the basement to keep her Airbnb running. My sister then took to social media crying that she can't live upstairs. And I'm pretty sure the two of them were fighting with each other because all my sister did after that was complain online. And my mother barely posted anything on her social media anymore because of the previous stunt she tried. I've said this before, guys, entitled family members are just the worst. And that mother and sister were definitely crazy to believe that they could just bully OP out of his own house that was legally willed to him. But that is family members for you guys. Their entitlement goes above and beyond that of random Karens because they feel that since they're blood, they can really have whatever they want. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy Karen stories. And guys, if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. A Karen attacks a retired army veteran that suffers from PTSD, and she gets taught a painful lesson she'll never ever forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.